I wrote a post a while ago too that was in defense of lurking behaviors. I'm a big fan of lurkers. I think they really are a backbone of why we do community. One of the things that I really evangelized about the support community and its function was people not returning to the community is fine. I really am excited about the next couple of years of community building at Zapier. We're doing the right thing, but from a community mindset.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Community Leaders Podcast, a conversation with community experts diving into their insights and leaving you with actionable ideas. It's been an incredible season so far, and if you haven't already, do subscribe. You can also watch these on YouTube at the YouTube account Steadfast Collective, or you can follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Today we're joined by Rachael Silvano, a seasoned community operations manager with a decade of experience in the field. Currently she works at Zapier, where she leads the Zapier Wizards Guild, a community focused on the intersection of AI and automation. Rachael was awarded the Community MVP by the Community Roundtable in 2021 and a Community Power User in 2022. I'm so excited to chat to Rachael, so let's welcome her in now. But before we do that, a quick word from our sponsors.
We are Steadfast Collective. We exist to craft digital applications that bring people together. A team of smart creatives, we are excited by technology, and we always aim to leave the internet in a better place than we found it. Working with many of the UK's leading communities, we use technology as an accelerator to help them grow and engage their members. Our applications resource membership organisations, grow businesses, and create value. We know what it takes to ship, market, and scale applications, and we apply this wealth of background knowledge to everything we do. We're not just another agency, we are community builders.
Hey Rachael, it is so good to have you with us. How are you doing today?
You know, I'm great. It's coming into fall in the States, and I'm super stoked that, we're not like sweating or sweltering anymore.
It's the same over here in the UK. So yeah, summer is drawing to an end. The kids are back at school and it feels like we can start, reminding ourselves what like trousers are and jumpers and stuff. I love wearing a jumper.
Me too. It's actually also my favorite time in community because I feel like there's always this energy that happens around September.
Mm-hmm.
And like when I run programming, like the vibes of like back to school and like learning is always like September is a chef's kiss for that.
I've literally just finished and published a Substack about rhythms and about how September is like a fresh start. It's almost like
Totally.
See how far you're doing on your yearly goal, and then September is almost like the kick up the bum to crack on through to December.
100%.
And also in the UK, we just have so many like public holidays, like bank holidays through summer, that actually in autumn people can actually get stuff done. It's quite nice.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like community rhythms and cyclical engagement is really real. And September to December is like where I bank the most of because then like, New Year's is like, I bank all my metrics on like September to December is going to be like where people are hyped up.
Yeah. This is when I remind the team, let's just get our heads down, just get some actual work done before you all vanish again at Christmas. So like, just get
exactly
stuff done.
Yeah.
It's good. So your week's going well?
It is. Yeah. Back. We're doing some really fun planning right now at Zapier, and we're getting kind of prepared for our big user conferences in September as well, Zap Connect. So there's always a lot of buzzing kind of coming up to the weeks leading up to that.
Nice. Is that in person or remote?
No, it's remote. There's been a push to potentially put it in person. I think we're going to do something a little more novel than making it live in person. But the virtual event is an absolute machine. It's a huge team that runs just Zap Connect, and they do it so well. And I'm so envious of how they can manage. I think their RSVP goals are in like the 30,000 range, and they have, like big speakers. Sam Altman spoke last year at Zap Connect. So they put in a lot of work.
When I go to an event where I don't want to say like an experienced event management team have been in charge of it, you can feel the difference of when you attend. Like I recently went to Stripe, have been touring around the world, and I went to their Stripe event in London at Tobacco Docks. and it felt so seamless and so effortless, but it was so complex and it just felt amazing.
Yeah, I've really learned. I'm doing wedding planning now. I'm getting married next year, and I've learned and I've gotten so much more respect for event management because that stuff, like even 150 people, the
Mm,
logistics of like how do they get there, and then our team is all a bunch of us are going to HubSpot in Boston in a few weeks, and that's tens of thousands of people. You have Michelle Obama speaking, and you're just like, how do you get how people arrange like the coda docs that the events team has are like in the like hundreds of just how they organize it. It's amazing.
yeah, it is. And then the detail that they go into as well. Like, I'm sure somebody already knows if Michelle prefers sparkling or still water.
And like the things that I don't even, yeah, it's really incredible. And also we have an additional, it's kind of cool at Zapier. We have an external events team that runs Zap Connect. We also do an in-person retreat because Zapier is 100% remote. So
Mm,
every year we have one person whose sole job is to get us to come together for a retreat. They just changed the name this year. Now it's going to be our summit. And that's 750 Zapians coming from around the world. They're all going to this one place. And the amount of questions that that team gets and
yeah.
the amount of work and headache to get people in, have like just a fun time. It's immeasurable. So much respect for that.
Ah, for sure. To organize that for 15 people is a full headache. It's really stressful because we've got people flying in different time zones. Who can get to the train station? Who can't? It's just yeah. But anyway, so Rachel, what do you do at Zapier? You're not on the events team.
I'm not, no. And it's a little funny because my title is Community Operations Manager at Zapier, and I've been at Zapier for 3 years, coming up in November. And also, first, kudos for pronouncing it right. It is Zapier. For anyone listening, Zapier does make you happier. That's the way to remember how to pronounce it.
Nice.
And I came into the community team, and also just really quick context setting. Zapier, if you don't know, is a tool that connects tools to one another. We have 6,000 app connections that allow you basically to do if this, then that statements with anything across the internet.
Mhm.
I call it kind of like the duct tape of the internet, which is just letting you do things that normally need code without code. So when I came into Zapier, I worked under Jillian Betlick, who's now the director of community over at Calendly.
Mhm.
And I sat under support, and our community was the Zapier support community, which, as you can imagine, 6,000 apps, millions of users, big support community, massive. And then last year, they did a structural change, and I was put on a new team that's called community marketing, and it
Mm.
sits under marketing. And I was tasked with launching a new community of practice, which is called the Zapier Wizards Guild. So my role has, even though my title is still community ops, my role has changed quite a lot. And we've kept the support community, and then we're running in tandem the Zapier Wizards Guild, which luckily for me, I sort of cut my teeth in community running communities of practice. I started the community roundtable. I love communities of practice. It's really where I like sitting. So I've been running that since about April of this year.
That's really exciting. I was talking to someone the other day about how great it is that the Zapier community is around that theme rather than just being here's a place where people talk about APIs. No. This is fun, and like it feels like what you've done over there has real energy and life rather than we're just going to follow the normal.
Yeah, it was a huge. So, first of all, I think one of the biggest things that was different for me building this community is having access to a brand team. And I knew that I wanted it to feel like you're in the Zapier ecosystem, but it's different, and you have identity, and you have like, you are a wizard when you're here.
Mhm.
And we really did a lot of testing around the idea of being a wizard and the sort of idea of a guild. And that was a really fun experience to have somebody, because my background's not in design, my background's in community, and so having somebody build out this entire ecosystem of imagery and identity that people can hold on to when they're in that space. And simultaneously, the support community is where you're going to go to do those kind of like, hey, I'm having a problem, I want to talk about APIs. The Wizards Guild is really designed a lot more around feeling like you're with 5 people that are having a really cool conversation about AI
Mm.
and automation, and you're getting something out of it. And I think that it's a really cool opportunity to not have the pressure as a community builder where we're not thinking about scale. We're actually thinking about, our users independently finding value in this community space rather than let's grow it to 80,000 people.
Mm.
If anything, we kind of have been really encouraged to do a slow and low build, which has been awesome for me.
Mm. Yeah, and that's fun, I guess, because Zapier really is the epitome of the more people use it, the less likely they are going to churn because it starts to
Yep.
become so integral to what they do. I was at a conference recently and the CEO of it was at the front and he was talking about organizing the conference and he said, if Zapier vanished tomorrow, he said this on stage in front of hundreds of people, if Zapier vanished tomorrow, our business would not exist.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing just runs on Google Sheets, Zapier, email, the whole thing. And I was like, yeah, that's wild. You're never going to let your credit card just expire. It's too risky.
Yeah, it's this, it's really wild. And the thing that's been interesting learning Zapier as a platform is that we have accounts and companies and users that have these like uber complex business workflows. And then we have small to medium businesses that use it, so
Mhm.
there's this kind of universality to it. And one of the things that the Wizards Guild has been really fun at doing is saying, one of my favorite, we do these like member ride-alongs that are these really casual conversations about how people build things. And somebody's wife is a gardener, and they did a Zapier-based automation with AI where his wife just talks to her phone about like, this is what I did for this client. And then Zapier and ChatGPT takes it, transforms that into an invoice, and automatically sends it to a client of
Yeah.
hers, which is like, it just blows my mind of how, you can see these companies that like, Zapier has some brands that are, world known, and they have these super complex, like people that own these automations. And then you have these people that are just independent folks just using Zapier in the day to day. And both
Yeah.
of those kind of can come together and share and learn, which is awesome.
Yeah. I used to use it a long time ago. I think my first Zap was I shared an image to Twitter, please share it to Instagram.
Yeah.
It was something as simple as that. And then, we use it now for all sorts of random complex things. I think we connect our CRM system with our sales pipeline tool.
Sure.
Just bits and bobs like that. Cause like there's no native integration. I don't want to write the API integration myself. Zapier does that for me.
Right. Right. I am a big fan of baby zaps, is what I call them lovingly, which is, for me, it's a lot of my community work is a lot of like 2-step zaps where it's
Yeah.
like someone news to the community, add a tag, or, even a little like our community right now is based on Circle, and Circle allows you to send DMs, but they won't let you send emails. You
Mm.
can do that with Zapier, and you can use variables in the way that you're like, hi, Pete, welcome to the community. And that's something that, any limit that like a platform specific, especially as, I'm sure you know quite a lot about community platforms, any limit that I see in a platform, usually Zapier can fill that gap.
No.
And I also say it's really lucky that I just happen to work at Zapier, so I don't have to like pay for it. And I have access to all the premium cool tools, and it's a lot of fun to play with. Yeah.
So was Circle your choice?
It's a great question. It was. The big support community is hosted on Gainsight by Insided.
Mhm.
And I really like Gainsight as a tool for scale because it's just so fast at moderation and it lets you look at questions and answers. Gainsight really doesn't care about, well, I don't know what they care about, but they're not designed for user groups and they're not designed for small conversations. And interestingly, the support community has the issue when I walk someone new through the community teams at Zapier, when I show them the support community, the first thing I do is go to the homepage and I show them the most recent 20 posts. They're all within 2 hours.
Sure.
So when you have that type of volume, there's both a benefit as an ROI for ticket deflection where you're like, oh my gosh, all these people are coming in with questions.
Mm.
it also is a absolute quicksand for like content that you're interested in sharing.
Mm.
So it's like if I was to post like, hey, we have a call coming up, it would get buried immediately because there's just so many questions coming in. Circle was new to me. Interestingly, Wade, our CEO, and Sid, the CEO of Circle, are friends and know each other. And I also am close friends with Noelle Flowers, and so knew Teachable and knew the some of the origin stories of Circle. But they were a new platform to me, and we did a sort of audit of what we wanted the community to do. And Circle was, yeah, it was really great to start with because it let us build an MVP, and that was and I've been really happy with them so far. So yeah, that's yep.
Do your wizards log in with their Zapier account, or do they have a separate guild account?
They log in with their Zapier account, and it can be a free or premium, like any level of Zapier account, and that's pretty seamless for them,
Nice.
which is great. I think that one of the things that's on my mind right now is how. So the other thing that Zapier pretty recently did is we acquired the No Code Ops community. That's a Discord community,
Mhm.
and so as we keep building and adding community instances and work, there's this: how do we make that so you're kind of going through any phase of the community seamlessly? That we don't have right now. So for example, if you're posting a question on the support community, that's not going to translate over to the Wizards Guild and vice versa. But the setup of the SSO was really easy for Circle. I was very happy with that.
That's really good. Yeah, it's a real pet peeve when the community isn't single sign-on with the product you're trying to use, and I'm like, I just want to submit a support ticket or I want to get involved, and now you're asking me for an entirely new account, and oh, please stop it. But
Yeah,
is that? But it's good. It sounds like a really simple, straight. It sounds like it was a straightforward integration.
it really was, and it's interesting because we had some rockier SSO problems with other platforms we were assessing earlier on, and that really surprised me. The challenge is usually too that when they come to the Wizards Guild for the first time, I want to capture information without bogging them down. And so one of the things that we're also I'm very lucky to have at Zapier is a data scientist who will work with us, and that's something that we'll be doing longer term, is trying to collect like Zapier usage data. And be, because right now one of the things I don't really say to our team is, hey, X% of people coming into the Wizards Guild are, getting an enterprise level account, or they're doing these types of things. Right now, it's all very localized. So it's all very like, what are they doing in the community? But long term, our data scientists will be doing some numbers magic to make sure that like we can connect all of that data together.
That sounds really fun. Nice. So we're going to roll on some questions about what you're up to and so on. So let's jump straight in. What are some of the key metrics you use to track that your community is quote unquote thriving?
Yeah, I've been very, like, as I've mentioned before, I was really lucky that I wasn't given a lot of pressure early on to determine those metrics. I think historically, because I've led communities of practice in the past, a big one for me is saying, are folks coming back? Are they having engaged conversations? Are they finding value? I wrote a post a while ago too that was in defense of lurking behaviors. I'm a big fan of lurkers. I think they really are a backbone of why we do community of like, it takes it. I'm really comfortable with saying, okay, I'll have 5% of my guild members ever be very vocal and posting and starting conversations. But for the 95% who are reading that content, are they finding that content interesting and valuable? And how can I try to ascertain that? Like, what am I doing that's like sort of showing me like, okay, people are finding this valuable? So right now in the guild, we did a phased launch, which is one of my favorite ways to start a community, which was the initial sort of start of the community was a application based beta program that was 150 members that were all levels of experience with AI and automation. We got them in. They're called our innovators. They have a special tag. They got a special private group. Very handheld onboarding process for them. So like each week was very descriptive. Like, this is what I want you to do. And so our metrics at that first phase were like, are they engaging? Are they doing the things we're asking them to do? And now we're in the middle phase, which is sort of this like, we're not quite promoting organic discovery just yet of the community. So it's saying, are conversations cropping up? What themes are we noticing? What types of places are being requested? Who's attending live calls versus like accessing recorded content? And then next month during Zap Connect is when we'll announce that like the Wizards Guild is now public. We are
Mm.
now like open to you to access. And then we'll start seeing like, okay, what's our membership growth track? How are we sort of engaging these folks when they're first coming in. In all of this, since moving to a marketing team, one of the biggest like new things that we're dealing with is like this experiential mindset, which is like just try it.
Mm.
An example of that, to go off on a tiny tangent, is I'm very passionate about cohort based onboarding.
It sounded cohort based. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think that it's actually pretty divisive. People in communities sometimes are like, I don't think cohorts work. I
Hmm.
think that they are too much work and logistics. A thing that I'm really excited about trying and doing this with an automation mindset is scaling a cohort. So I'm in a lot of conversations right now of how can I have somebody within 2 weeks get value from the community in a way that's tailored to them?
Hmm.
And as the community grows, one of the real important values that I don't want to lose is feeling like you're in a group with 10 people who get it.
Hmm.
And so, like, how are we finding those 10 people and putting them in a room? And so, that's something that, as I'm thinking about, like, how is my community successful? Once we deploy a cohort based onboarding program, like, can we sustain it? Can we scale it? Can we get people to sort of understand what the community is about really quickly and get them value really quickly?
Nice. Yeah. Well, I've chatted to quite a few people recently about various cohort related things. For instance, Paz down in Australia, their community collective, theirs is all cohort based in terms of how they run, and their cohorts are kind of getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm sure she'd be an interesting person to talk to you about how do you have a cohort of whatever it is, maybe 200, feel like a cohort of 10, because I guess it's a different kettle of fish. One of the things I'm interested in is from that original cohort, were you pleased with your retention rates through to now?
That's a great question. And yes, we have had some folks come up through the Innovators program that were not known to Zapier, that weren't known to be super users,
Mm.
who have become these like micro celebrities. Like a great example, I went to the Led by Community event in London, and I went to dinner with one of our innovators, and we spoke for 4 hours. And they're just these like, so and that's something that our marketing team cares a lot more about
Mm.
than the like thousands and thousands of people, is like how are we making a connection and sharing a story about
Mhm.
how Dave uses Zapier, how Danny uses Zapier, how Veronica uses Zapier. And so the numbers have done pretty well and pretty steadily, and I think that the fact that we did this sort of like, you're in this little group and you're doing these things, really helped them cultivate a sense of ownership and shared
Mm.
ownership. And then we also delayed sending swag, which was another thing that was sort of by it was a happy accident, I think, that we were debating for a really long time what to send people. And so we're sort of doing this like, there's a bit of a lull, or people might kind of forget. And then like they get something from us, or there's like a
Mm.
new thing. And we're like, oh my gosh, like here you go. And so, yeah, I would say it's been pretty successful. And a number of customer advocacy stories have come out of these innovators, and a number of just other benefits to Zapier have come out of these use cases of folks coming into the community. So that's been, yeah, really beneficial to us.
And building that group of real advocates, the folk who essentially become an extended arm of your marketing team,
Yeah,
that would have been really tough in your support community.
100%.
Yeah, it would have been tough to build out that relationship with, somebody who then going to go on to dinner with and talk about Zapier for 4 hours in a room where everyone's going, my password's not working. That sort of, do you know what I mean? That sort of thing. It would have been
Yeah.
really hard to cultivate those deep, meaningful conversations in a very noisy space like that.
And I'm really happy that our exec team saw that. I think that when people come to a support community, a lot of time that's driven by friction with the product. Like they're
Hmm.
frustrated. They're not coming to the support community for almost anything else. And when I first came into Zapier, one of the things that I really evangelized about the support community and its function was people not returning to the community is fine.
Hmm.
The big things that a support community is trying to do is, SEO optimize, like, finding an answer to your question. And then if you got an answer to your question, like, why would you come back? And
Yeah.
and to be honest, Pete, for the first year I was at Zapier, I tried answering that question and I couldn't come up with like the right thing
Hmm.
of like and we tried some stuff on Gainsight and we we're kind of we toyed around with user groups, we toyed around with this and that, but the reality is that it was such a wide net of people that are just like, hey, the only thing I'm doing right now is trying to build a Zap and it's not working and I'm flustered by that. And I think by opposition, the Wizards Guild, we don't answer support questions. If
Mm.
you're like, hey, like this isn't working, I send you over to support. I'm like, please, go ask
Yeah.
them. And instead, that really leaves the space to say, like we're doing a lot of use case analysis of like what, how do you get this to work? Or we had our CEO Wade come in and do a like state of AI. And it really gives that because you're not competing
Yeah.
with the noise and with the friction. You're saying instead like this is its own little space to have this dialogue.
Yeah, if I've had an issue, I've Googled it and I've come across the Zapier support and I've seen the problem, I've seen a solution, I've tried it and it's worked. I have no need to sign up, leave a comment saying this was great. There's completely pointless. Like there's no need.
100%.
And the community has already served its purpose. It's done its job. It's saved a support ticket in many ways, and it's just a different thing, right?
Exactly. And I think that when you're looking at that's one of the reasons why when I first started at Zapier, we really evangelized as well, keeping the entire community unlocked.
Mhm.
Almost everything in there is, you go to Google, you put in Airtable and Google Sheets or Airtable and Gmail, and you get and Zapier, and you get the support
Yeah.
answer, and that's exactly what you want.
Mm.
It's not the most dynamic community building. It's very important community building. And I think that as I'm watching other community builders who have similar support structures, I've been really keen to see how are they cultivating advocates? How are you finding those people that are, the like right seedlings to then engage and
Mm.
do other work with? And I think long term, there might be some strategy that will develop of saying, like one thing I haven't done and I might at some point is go through and find people in the support community who are asking questions about AI or who are like phrasing things in a certain way and then maybe inviting them to the
Mm.
Wizards Guild. That might be something I would do. But yeah, the design and intent, and a big thing that when I talk to people who don't know a lot about community who are starting is to like think about what your platform wants you to do
Mhm.
and then like use that as the like so Gainsight really is to me it's a big moderation hub and it's really thinking about like getting an answer to a question. Circle is a lot more to me about these like subspaces and having these like conversations that are filtered through the idea of like focused dialogue around what is AI for marketers, what is AI for ops, and the ability to do the live streams, which has just been amazing for
Mm.
me.
Nice. As you go from kind of being this, because you mentioned you're going like public, open to anybody after your event. How are you going to handle onboarding? I'm guessing that's not going to be a manual process. There'll be some automations around that. How are you still going to make people feel special, loved, cared, that they want to come back?
Yeah, I think one of the keys to doing that at scale is deputizing members to help with that.
Mm.
I've seen a lot of community managers do this process of like having a group of people that are charged with being, like a welcome voice and a welcome face and saying, hey, like welcome to the community. We're happy you're here. To your point, being in an automation company, I'm thinking through now what some of those like, you know, like what the high value resources are that I can share with people. How I convince people that this is about finding them value first.
Mm,
So one of the things that's really important to me is being the face of the community and saying that, like, I mean it when I say if you're looking for a resource or a person, I'll find that person for you. Like, that's my job.
mm,
So if we can send out any sort of marketing and messaging to these folks that are coming in post Zap Connect to say, like, I'm Rachel, I'm a person, like, this is, like, you can email me back and I see it. um and then also, I think, one thing I've been thinking a lot about over the last couple of years with community is how we give directive and shape to what we ask of people. And I think one of the things when I started out is I used to be really sheepish about, like, I don't want to like, I don't want to be too, like, bold. I don't want to, like, assume that, like, you have time or that you want to do this. And then as I've grown into my confidence as a community manager, it's a lot more about, like, hey, I really believe in the value of doing this, and I'm going to, like, be upfront with you. If it's not for you, okay, but, like, I'm going to present you the opportunity to engage. And that might be, we have, like I mentioned, these live streams, and those can
mm.
be led by any member. So if you're new and you're, like, excited, like, come on, like, come do a live stream, and we'll, it'll just be low key and we'll have folks in. And I also think that there's this rare opportunity within the Wizards Guild that Zapier is this, it's a big company. There's a lot of sort of, like, if you're coming in from a support perspective, there's this sort of like, barrier between us and you, where it's like
Mm,
you're emailing this big pool. And by contrast, at the Wizards Guild, like, we have product people that hang out there,
mm.
and we do these one of the programs that I really love running in the Wizards Guild is automation challenges, where we do a Monday to Friday program that's like, you start with an idea and you end the week with a Zap that's, like, functioning and built. And that's led by product people that can, like, really dive into the minutia of it with you and talk through, like, how to set this stuff up. And so, like, those types of things are a really cool opportunity to get past the disambiguation of, okay, I'm dealing with this monolith of, like, Zapier and the support queue, versus, like, I'm talking to, Pete, and Pete is gonna, like, with Zapier, and they're gonna help me out. And Jordan and Maggie are running AMAs. And so, like, I
Mm.
think that's a really cool opportunity that will really highlight for new members coming in.
My brain's just had a thought. And has your head of recruitment, head of people, whatever role title they have, they must have come knocking so far and said, hello, you are speaking to so many people who are so engaged with Zapier. They're literally proving on a weekly basis how competent they are at using this. I feel like at some point, it's not going to be that long until you hire someone from the Wizard Guild, right?
That would be amazing. It hasn't happened yet. And I think that, yeah, we've had a number of things that have jumped off from the Wizards Guild. So, for example, we did an inaugural, we're running kind of like a awards show this year with Zap Connects. It's called the Zappies. And so the Zappies was seated in the community and really promoted there. And I think that, yeah, we also have had people that have come in and said, hey, I'm hiring for an AI role. Like, can I
Nice.
post it
Mm.
in the guild? And that's absolutely, like, of course, like, we want to help people get jobs and find work that suits them. But yeah, and right now, just to give a little context too, we're about 800 members, so we're
Mm.
still pretty small. And I think that my goal is that we'll end the year just over 1,000. So I'm not, I think keeping things, like, just that slow and low growth, where, like,
Yeah.
I'm still am we're still small enough where, like, I notice when people are coming in, and I'm like, oh great, like, a new person's here, and they, like, said hello, and we're going to engage with them.
That's really nice. And you're very fortunate to have an exec team who aren't like, we need 50,000, like, just so they can go to golf and tell their buddies they've got 50,000 in something, or do you know what I mean?
It's amazing. Wade he did the AMA for the community and really loved doing it, and posted about it on LinkedIn, which was like, oh my gosh. And the entire team seems to really, and that's the other, so one of the things that your comment just reminded me of is talking to our past director of marketing, who said that when people come to the support communities because of friction, and that's, unfortunate, you're dealing with a lot of people that are bummed
Mm,
out. When people are coming to the Wizards Guild, they're stoked. Like
mm,
AI and automation is making their work easier. It's making really cool new advances, and they're coming and they're happy. And so what I get to do all the time is come into our Slack and say, look at these folks who are doing really cool stuff with AI and automation and who are really happy Zapier users. And that is like, execs munch that up. Like it's
yeah.
so like they're just looking for these stories. And so much of what we see on Reddit and on like a support forum is like, Zapier is expensive, or this is happening, and or there's like a negativity. The Wizards Guild is so largely people that are like amped about these opportunities. And so we get to highlight those, and that makes my job really easy. And it also buffers some of the pressure as a community builder to say like, okay, are we seeing month over month and year over year
Mm.
growth? It's a lot more about like, are we seeing customer love, and are we like, am I highlighting and promoting that? Which is the real qualitative side of community management, which I think is unique about what we do. And it's that sort of one-to-one of saying like, look at this great story that came out of here.
Do you envision a world where you and the product managers work together to kind of find beta testers and whatnot for maybe upcoming features?
Absolutely. I think that the Wizards Guild is perfect for that. Zapier is really all in on AI right now. So
Hmm.
there's stuff cooking that is like blowing my mind. And I think that the more that we can sort of utilize and engage these folks that are already sharing and already doing that in the Wizards Guild to be those, feedback and sort of like interview style work in the guild, I think would be great. Yeah. And also Zapier does have the early access program, which is a Slack community.
Hmm.
I think there might be some work of us like consolidating eventually all of this. But yeah, it definitely could be.
Nice, good stuff. Um, we've spoken briefly about it with the live streaming, but is there any other ways that you're kind of promoting your members' content or really encouraging them to create as well as kind of engage?
Yeah, there is. So yeah, we do the live streams and the member ride-alongs. I try to prompt members with meaningful uh discussion ideas for them to kind of noodle on. And I also do a lot of one-on-ones where I just sort of talk with members about like, what are you working on? What
Mm,
challenges are you facing? It's a lot of strategic listening too. It's a lot of saying like, what's happening in the world of AI. Like we're in a lot of AI communities as Zapier. And so I'm sort of saying like, okay, like what's going on there? Um, People are pretty willing to share. I think a challenge that we run into occasionally in this community is people don't know what they don't know. And
mm.
so and that's also an issue with Zapier of like a big thing that we are combating all the time is 0 to 1. Like, how do you build your first Zap? And how do you like and like we see the same thing with AI as like people look at it and it's really overwhelming. And you have these advanced users who are using AI to write code and it gets super complex. And we're trying to make sure that we do content and design and intent around like how do you like what is chat gpt, like how do
Mm,
you just get started, like let's like lay a baseline. And to that point, Circle also does courses, which is great for that kind of thing.
mm.
So that'll be something that we're deploying and working on as well, so that people could kind of like level up within the community. There's some other stuff that I think is like kind of in a community manager's toolkit, like gamification is something that we think about, and like how do we reward people that are
Mm.
engaging with us and doing these cool stories. Delight and surprise is another one. I'm obsessed with this. We have this really cool mascot that was built for the Wizards Guild, and I had them 3D printed in this like little resin
That's
model.
cool.
So like we send these out to people if they do something like really cool for us.
Nice.
It's just like a little, like I just love it. And I think that yeah, that's some of the stuff that we do.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point I saw you mentioned courses there, some sort of lightweight certification where people can be like, look, I'm somewhat competent in Zapier, put that on my CV, add it into a resume, that sort of stuff, because all of that sort of stuff, especially if you are working with a non-technical company, but you are technically minded, something like that just showcases, look, I know how to connect CRM system with spreadsheet. And for you, that sounds like magic, but for me, I can do it.
That's such a good way of putting that, Pete. And I haven't like put those thoughts together. But as someone who is, I'm technically minded, I'm not a coder.
Mhm.
But if I was any other company I'll go at from this point on in my career, which I hope is none because I love Zapier and I want to stay here forever. But if I left, I would bring that automation mindset and that
Mm,
automation knowledge of saying, it's exactly what you're saying. It's like magic. I've worked at small nonprofits where the idea of I can click a button and it will just automatically take that CRM data and
mm.
update it, or will automatically like source new content feeds that are relevant, and like all of the stuff that just is to so many people out of scope. It's like I could see myself getting a job down the road where like I push a button and that's like the day's work because no one would know that like it seems like this big complex thing, but it's actually just a zap. So
I saw the day before CMX in California, they were holding Startup Grind, which Wade was speaking at.
oh yeah.
And he was chatting a lot about the natural language writing as app. So for your average gardener, baker, builder, whatever it is, that is actual magic. Because for someone who is technically minded, I still like writing my zaps the old way personally. But for someone who is like, I don't understand what an API even is, when new thing is added to Google Sheet, email me, and then it just creates a zap like that. That's like stuff we were dreaming about 10 years ago.
It's coding in the language of English, and it's like just coding is writing a sentence. And like I mentioned to you before the recording, my fiance owns a bookstore, and for them it's this like I've applied automation to the
Hmm,
company, and it is that exact thing of like when an eBay sale happens, send me a text message, and
amazing.
that makes it so accessible to people that would never have touched Zapier, or who have never like thought that the amount of times that people are like, oh well, like this tool doesn't apply to me. And it's
Hmm,
like, even for I've seen people, there's some great blog posts that the content team has put out about like using Zapier for wedding planning, using
hmm,
Zapier for personal goal setting. And it's these things that like you just don't think of when you're thinking about this like big tool that like is a Salesforce machine and like uses this like connects this stuff together. But the reality is when you have these that AI builder that takes your language and puts it into his app, I think it makes it so much more accessible for people to just start thinking about it. And
hmm.
it's not always perfect. Sometimes it hallucinates, or sometimes it says something's available and it's not. But it gives you a starting point and it lets you start doing that recipe building. And that's something that's really important when I'm talking to people about thinking with an automation mindset, is it's just saying like, okay, it's the when this do that.
Hmm.
And like if you can start toying with that and like putting in apps and then seeing it work, like the first time I got my little baby's app of like when I add a reaction to a Slack message, save it in an Asana board or save it in a Trello board,
Very
it
nice.
like blew my mind that I was like, oh my gosh, I can now like parse through all of my to-dos in Slack instead of having to keep it in my brain.
Hmm.
Um, and giving those aha moments to as many people as quickly as possible is part of my goals in the Wizards Guild of in like usually with AI, and that's usually thinking about that kind of thing. So
It has been so good to talk. I've loved hearing you talk. It was great to hear about the Wizards Guild, hear about what you're up at Zapier. I hope the event goes amazing and you have a blast. I'm sure you'll be very busy afterwards, everybody wanting to join. But it's been so good to hear from you and kind of hear about your experiences and your expertise. And thank you.
yeah, and if anyone listening to this wants to join the community, they can just go to wizards.zapier.com. You can log in with a free account. I really am excited about the next couple of years of community building at Zapier. I think that we're doing the right thing, but from a community mindset. Like when you go to CMX or when you go to Led by Community and you're when I listen to a CMO talk about community, sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. I feel like Zapier is a company that I'm so like, I hope we can talk again in a year and
Yeah.
I can tell you about like what the no code ops community is up to, or how they sent us to do content marketing in Paris. And we're just like doing a street recording of like fast, like how do you use Zapier, and getting this stuff just out there and talking to our customers. Cause it never ceases to amaze me what people do.
I'm sure the Zapier community will be in case studies for many years to come.
What a sweet thing to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it. And for everyone else, thank you for listening and watching, and we will see you next week for another Digital Community Leaders podcast. Cheers, Rachel.
All right. Bye, Pete.
This is the Digital Community Leaders Survey 2023. And this is the Digital Community Leaders Survey 2023 second edition. Back in 2023, we released a beautiful printed book. And due to its popularity, we sold out of printed copies. Rather than reprinting, we listened to your feedback and we included 40% more content in this copy. We created the report to be a data-backed handbook for building the foundations of your brand's community. For instance, did you know that 70% of communities we surveyed saw growth over the last 12 months? And we know those businesses are growing too. Other metrics we dive into include community growth, biggest pain points, community purpose, what are other community managers measuring, funding, participation, C-suite involvement, and much more. In this book, we present the data and expert insights from Richard Gott, Michelle Goodall, Vincent Boone, Keen Bakatari, Rosie Sherry, Matt Sullivan, Laura Roth, Nicole Saunders, Blaise Grimes-Vaught, and Jan Carlisle. We've also included frameworks such as the community archetypes, ecosystem of impact, community participation ladder, and the community first culture nexus. There's so much in here, I can't wait for you to get your hands on this new edition. You can order your printed copy from Amazon today, or download a digital copy for free at digitalcommunityleaders.com.